Well, we dedicate this whole episode of TV3Newday, especially today and the rest of the week, to our own Christian Achu, who passed on at the age of 31. And I have to say, again, our condolences go to the family, friends as well, and the whole of the Ghanaian public. But let me just introduce my guest for the morning. I have Aduji Tamaklo. Aduji Tamaklo is a legal practitioner, and thank you for joining us, Aduji.
Thank you. Good morning, and good morning to my friend.
Yeah. Palgrave Boachidankwa is government spokesperson for governance and security. Thank you for joining me. So if you can see, we're all in the morning mood, but TV3 alongside its dedication has a great partnership with Star Ghana, and as a result we have a key component of programming which we always undertake over the weekend called Mission. And for this time around, we decided to also focus on education. And that's how it goes. Because what would you do as a parent if your child has to literally go through basic education from primary 1 to 6, studying under trees? As if that is not enough, they would have to also carry furniture in and out of a room every day. And when the rains come, school must automatically come to a close. Komladum tells the story of the 31st December Movement Primary School in the East Gonja municipality of the Savannah region, where education is being heavily impacted in terms of access and outcomes. Here's a story.
The name of a school, 31st December Movement Primary. Some of the girls, like Sharifa Muntari and Favor, want a good future for themselves.
Anytime we come to school, we bring our furniture out and send it back. If rain also just rain, we have to pack home. And the problem we don't have classrooms. We are sitting under trees.
Sharifa Muntari, like her other colleagues, are almost always distracted.
Every day when motorbikes and bicycles are passing, our attention is on them. We can't learn how we like. So please, we beg you, we need a classroom block to sit and learn.
Head teacher Mahama Shaibu wonders why a classroom block started over a decade ago remains abandoned.
Actually, it has been affecting our enrollment just because we are sitting under trees. Meanwhile, we are having a new block, uncompleted one. The municipal director, he asked us to write to the office to be sent to a district assembly. We did that. Even we took pictures of this new block. Yes, sir, there's no response.
That means even basic amenities, water, washroom for the girls are all non-existent. A UNESCO 2021 report estimates 11 million girls may not return to school following the COVID-19 outbreak. Those between 12 and 17 years are at risk of dropping out of school in low and lower income countries. Some of them due to lack of access to sanitation and hygiene materials.
A few minutes to midday, as you can see, the rains are coming, and so the students are having to leave, even though classes are not over. This is what happens every time the rains come. And so you can imagine the contact hours that are lost every time when the rains are coming.
Head of Supervision at the East Gonja Education Directorate, Alhaji Adam Swale Kauribi, says the municipality is heavily challenged.
If well-meaning Ghanaians, whoever is ever ready to come to our aid to support us in terms of monitoring, to come and support the municipality in terms of what? School infrastructure, decent school infrastructure, then again furniture.
Member of Parliament for Salga South, Haja Zuwira Ibrahima, cannot understand why the classroom project expected to address the problem remains abandoned.
It looks like no one owns that building. You struggle to find who put it there, when did this start, how did this start, why has it stalled? There is no story. It's so sad that you go to the municipal assembly, there are no documents, because the building just didn't descend from the skies. Someone must have awarded a contract to somebody, and someone must have started some work. The first NGO I took there, they were really willing to take it up. They looked at it and said, this quality work that has been abandoned, it can be redone. So far we floated that school, and we are hoping that one of the NGOs will come to the ground and start work, do something there.
She knows the Sustainable Development Goal 4, which targets inclusive and equitable quality education, promotion of lifelong learning opportunities for all, equal access for all women and men, elimination of gender disparities, and ensure access by 2030 is far from attainable here.
I realize that waiting for Ghana government is going to be tough. So I'm currently working with 3 NGOs, and they are very passionate about education. One of them has already hit the ground running, and we have a school coming up around Bagabaga enclave. That whole enclave, there is no school, so we are building a school for them.
The pupils, residents, and education stakeholders hope some urgent help would come. Until then, it is the pupils, those who decide to stay in school, under these trees, their resolve and a great deal of God's grace to see them through. Komla Adom, TV3 News, Salga.
Oh, it's something that confronts everyone, every community, so to speak. Palgrave, what can we do to better improve some of these situations as far as we're related? Because we know a lot of educational infrastructure is still ongoing.
Roland, a very good morning to you, and good morning to your viewers and to my brother and colleague, lawyer. I would want to begin by extending government's condolence again to Christian Achu's family, his wife and beautiful children, the twin sister, the mother, the siblings, and to the entire country. Government received the remains of Christian Achu yesterday, and we had our official prayer before he was dispatched to the morgue. Government has also stated that we are going to be heavily involved with the entire processes of the burial. And so this morning we send our condolences to the entire Ghanaian people. And may his soul rest in peace and rise in glory. The issue that happened in Syria and Turkey is very devastating. Over 50,000 lives have been lost, over 34,000 households and properties. It's a very difficult situation, and we wish them well. Roland, our government has been extremely interested with infrastructure as it relates to education. We've had a number of STEM projects that we have begun, also taking into some infrastructural works across the country. I'm certain that the Salaga issue would be taken care of as it's come to our notice as a government, and it's not an isolated issue at all. But it doesn't take away the very good works that our government has done in building schools across the length and breadth of this country, and also ensuring that the young people who are placed in these schools are well taken care of, the academics are in sync, and education is ongoing, which is a priority for our government.
Adiji, a couple of words on the subject.
Okay, so once again, good morning to our cherished viewers. Good morning to your good self. May I use this opportunity, as it were, to express my deepest condolences to the family of Christian Achu. At age 31, he has impacted the world greatly. Strangely, it's upon death that we are beginning to see some of these great works. Today, these things may not mean too much for him, as he cannot relate. I wish whilst he was alive, he had the benefit of hearing some of these testimonies. But that notwithstanding, like it is said, it is God that gives, it is God that takes. We are quite limited relative to what we can do. we cannot question the Almighty God, how he does his things. He is God by himself. And it is what he purposed that he does. And in fact, that's what makes him God. We'll leave it at that. I can only wish the wife, the kids, the twin sister, the brother, and the family members, what shall I say, the deepest of condolences under the circumstances. It's quite a painful exit. You know, in this life, you step out from home to go and look for daily bread for yourself, your family, and tragedy happens. May the good Lord avoid us premature death. That said, I've watched the documentary by TV3. Quite an interesting documentary. I say this because, you see, those of us who have had the benefit of schooling or doing our basic education in quite rural areas, we can relate with this story. The fact of sometimes sitting under trees to learn. You have encounters with the birds. They become your closest associates. The fact of carrying your desk to school back and forth, because there are no proper classroom that you can, as it were, sit and have decent, you know. The part of our world where you have to contend with some of these challenges is quite an interesting thing, in the sense that if you go through all that channel, and by God's grace, you are still able to make it, it's a good job. And that is why I have a different opinion when it comes to even assessment of students. Because look at a situation where, at the end of the day, whether the child schooled in Accra, West Gonja, Nkwanta, Salifu, Broniase, Bontibo, or Prusipu, those places, you understand, whether it's Asatu, whether it's Bandu Toji or whatever, he's going to write a BEC with the notion that we've all had the benefit of having encountered that level of teaching and a certain outcome. So I'm quite slow in reviewing or assessing kids relative to backgrounds. Because obviously a kid who is in Accra or some of the well-placed schools may come out well, naturally because of the facilities that they encounter. But I need to make this point clear, that in this country, government has always taken the ultimate responsibility in providing educational infrastructure. Yes, there has been some private sector involvement. And I recall vividly when late President, may he so rest in peace, Professor Ivan Satamils became president, one of the foremost initiatives was eradicating the schools under trees. And I recall vividly, by the time, by 2012, we had done in almost getting to 2,300 schools under trees eradication. And I strongly believe that it's an initiative that we've carried through. I do not know the status of it. It appears now there's a certain over-concentration on free SHS at the point that it's almost like a neglect of basic education. And I'm aware that the attempt to even redefine what basic education now is. Sometimes we tend to put things that we are supposed to do differently, in the sense that, look, if you are basically putting free SHS at the head of everything, it doesn't help greatly. So that said, I want to congratulate TV3 for bringing all of us attention to this particular issue in West Gonja district. That's a very good one. I wish other media houses can draw similar attention to other issues here.
All right, so now let's turn our attention. On Friday, the finance minister was compelled to come to Parliament and then tell parliamentarians or brief them on the status of individuals who hold bonds or entities, and whether those who will be paid their accruals or returns or not, what categories they fall in excessively. And you would remember one of the extensive discussions that took place thereafter was whether they needed time. But it's prompted a situation where now it looks like a section of the minority are now going to file a motion to compel the minister to come and put before Parliament what the agreement is with the IMF before that board approval. Now, let's have an insert from a former Deputy Finance Minister, currently who also chairs the Finance Committee, Kwaku Kwarteng, Member of Parliament as well, on his reactions, and that was after Isaac Odongo had also made his input. But Kwaku Kwarteng, then we'll come to Palgrave Boachidankwa on some of the issues that have been raised over the period.
Speaker, it is in our collective interest. It is in our collective interest to come together as a people and find the kind of solution that would make our economy better going forward. Mr. Speaker, debt treatment and the domestic debt exchange program, as has been deployed by government, is good, but it is not enough. Mr. Speaker, the state of our economy now would require more than a debt treatment. Mr. Speaker, not only should we support government to cut the interest commitments that has burdened our economy, we must pursue an aggressive program to rein in expenditure. And we must do that not just for today, we must do that going forward, Mr. Speaker. I dare say, Mr. Speaker, that in doing this, and I speak not just to the executive, I also speak to ourselves as members of Parliament. In cutting expenditure, charity must begin at home, and we must lead by example. Mr. Speaker, how many times have we not heard the people who elected us into office say that there are issues with the V8 that we use? How many times have we not heard our people complain about the expression we take? I thought he said I should shout.
Palgrave, he speaks to a fundamental issue about when the 2023 budget was read, the policy initiatives in there to cut expenditure widely, and for which we have a deficit of some 61 billion Ghana cedis. And the question was raised, how are we going to finance this? And we have a member of Parliament, somebody who has been a former Deputy Finance Minister, chairs the Finance Committee, raising same issues that academics had raised, the opposition had raised, and even key individuals within the space had raised. What do you say to this?
Roland, I would want to use this platform to say thank you to the individual bond pensioners who assisted government, and also our government has taken them off this entire DDEP. Their tenacity, their boldness, their trust, their patriotism has indeed gone ahead to deepen the democracy that we have. And so congratulations to Dr. Edu Anane Entry and the rest of his compatriots who our retirees. And also to say that government has reached close to about 80 to 85% of the debt exchange program, which is a step in the right direction in ensuring that government is able to get the board of the IMF to give Ghana $3 billion US. Now, in terms of expenditure, I think there's a lot of conversations that we've had about it. From last year, 2022, after the cabinet retreat in March, and how government laid out expenditure cuts over the next 9 months, which came to an end December 2022, and at the President's 31st October economic address, also extended that to 2023. So clearly, expenditure cuts from our government is still ongoing. Government has burden shared extensively, when you can imagine that expenditure of MMDAs has been cut by 30%, salaries have been cut by 20% of ministers, state-owned enterprises, CEOs.
You sure government has burden shared?
Very much. Fuel has been cut by 50%, per diems has been cut by 50%, traveling has been reduced significantly, purchase of vehicles has been stopped, establishment of new public offices has been put on a hold. Lots of expenditure cuts, so our government has burden shared. Even in the midst of that, which I do not want to even go there, government has increased salaries of public officers by 30%, so significantly. But the debt exchange program, for us as a government, I think that the conversations have been extremely healthy and very engaging. We have engaged all stakeholders, and be it as it may, even come to a stage where our government has stated that we're going to give a coupon of 10% for 2023 to 2027 for people that are below 59 years old, and 100% of your principal for 2028 and 2029. And then a coupon of 15% for people that are above 59 years old for 2023 onwards to 2027, and then 100% of your principal for 2028 and 2029. So the debt exchange program has been very, very engaging for the Ghanaian people. And I mean, no doubt in my mind that considering the economic challenges that we have, government, as a listening government and a very caring government, is continually going to ensure that we are extremely responsible with the revenues that we have and the resources that we have available to ensure that we meet the very, very daily needs and teething challenges of this Ghanaian economy and the Ghanaian people. So we have heard the minority, and we have also heard the majority, but as a government, we will do what is best in the interest of the Ghanaian people and make sure that the Ghanaian people also appreciate the sacrifices that government is making and the plights that government is also going through.
Mr. Papagro-Bachedankwa, one of the key issues that the individual bondholders who were pensioners kept raising was that government had not shown, not only in the budget, but subsequently, that they also wanted to burden share. Indeed, that this was again re-echoed by the former Chief Justice of Akufo, who for about 3 days consequently or constantly was berating the finance minister and other associates of government about their commentary, the posture, and the proposals that have been made about so-called cutting and burden sharing. How do you respond to that in response to what you're saying?
No, I mean, Roland, you know that government is, the constellation of government is extremely wide. When government goes through, successive governments and even governments around the world go through very difficult challenges, government always needs to think outside the box. And I mean, Roland, if you look at how government every time looks at the papers and the books to make sure that we are balancing it very well, we are meeting the daily needs of the Ghanaian people, I think that these expenditure cuts that we have had from April of 2022 and still ongoing is significant.
You think so?
Very significant. Over the 9 months, of last year, from April to December of 2022, we raised about 50 million Ghana cedis out of those expenditure cuts. I'm certain that going forward, a number of initiatives will come up that would be able to ease government revenue and government coffers to make sure that we meet up to the needs of the Ghanaian people. It's the Ghanaian people that we are here to serve. It's the Ghanaian people that have voted us to make sure that the development that we also desire in this country comes to bear. And so we've heard all the various persons that have spoken and their concerns for government. We are always listening as a government, and we'll make sure that we'll meet the needs of the Ghanaian people.
Aduji, how do you respond to that? Because now there's this minority position that, look, bring this committed program that you're going to commit Ghana to the IMF with to Parliament, because there needs to be some great scrutiny because of the concerns that have been raised, especially the last couple of weeks. The government is not burden sharing enough. And so we need to see what it is. And you just oppose that with the response of Palgrave. Well, there's been cut 50 million, there's been cut, no workshops, etc. The connoisseur said that's not what we need.
So, Roland, I think that we need to cut the talk and deal with proper issues. It's instructive listening to my brother here make the point, that there had been cut in this, cut in that. And I've always had a position. If the thing is measurable, right, then measure it. You claim there had been a 30% cut in fuel or 50% cut in fuel. What savings have you made? Let's know. Because you cannot just come and parrot that you have done 50% savings without knowing the quantum. At least tell us that in the past, but for this initiative, I was spending 200 million Ghana cedis on fuel. Today, because I have taken this bold step, I have made the savings of 75 million Ghana cedis. And this 75 million, I have used it to construct this project so that Ghanaians can relate that but for this austerity measure, this and that would not have happened. And the classic example, I recall, under H. John Dramani Mahama, when minister decided to contribute just 10%, they had enough to build cheap compounds. At least you can see it's verifiable. So you cannot just come and say you have done savings. What savings? If you save and use it for another consumption, what have you done? We are back to square one. But you see, even critical is my brother's claim that by raising of this debt restructuring, they've made a 85% participation ratio. I think it's important that we expose government PR. First of all...
What do you mean by that?
Yes, it's a PR gimmick. First of all, you had domestic debt amounting to 182 billion Ghana cedis, right? Then you said that of the 182 billion Ghana cedis, okay, the restructurable debts, the debt that you can restructure, okay, is 135 billion.
Yeah, true.
Good. Then you initially said you wanted 80% of 135 billion. Now, when you tried everything and it was not working, you reduced the number to 97 billion. So 97 billion now became the restructurable debt. Out of that, you've gotten 80-something billion of that. Then you start clapping for yourself that you've done 85% participation ratio.
Is it that you doubt it? And why?
No, the 85%, I mean, like, you know, fractions.
Yes.
The 85% of what? You initially set up to do 135. That was the restructurable or eligible debt to be restructured. You could not achieve that. So you kept reducing the numbers until you got to 90 billion. Out of that 90 billion, you post that you have done 80. And that we should clap for you that you've done 85% participation ratio. I mean, look, it is this level of creativity, disingenuous accounting, that has brought this economy here. I recall vividly when the likes of the Honorable Atoforsen, Isaac Adongo, kept saying that our finance minister, the economic mismanagement team, chaired by Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, under the leadership of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, were not accounting properly for our public debt. Our friends in the NPP said, oh, you people, you can't read. Today, the latest numbers from Bank of Ghana shows that our public debt as at November 2022 is in the region of 575 billion. And for the first time, the Bank of Ghana acknowledges in the footnotes in that report that even these 575 billion Ghana cedis excludes Sino-Hydro, the debt owed by the various SOEs. So, the very thing that they have denied, we are back to square one. Two, when the Honorable Kessel Atoforsen raised the issue that, listen, Bank of Ghana is engaged in an illegality by way of printing money into this economy. Our friends in the NPP are again say, no, it is not true. Finally, Bloomberg reports that the World Bank and the IMF are demanding that the over 40 billion Ghana cedis that was, 45 billion Ghana cedis that was given to this Akufo-Addo administration by Bank of Ghana ought to also be restructured. So finally, they have given it to us as bonds. In 2021, we did 35 billion. In 2020, we did 10 billion. And do you know that each one of these borrowing or monies that Bank of Ghana was giving to the government of Akufo-Addo was contrary to Section 30 of the Bank of Ghana Act as amended in 2016? Because it had to be 5%. 5% of the total revenue of the previous fiscal year. Yeah. Governor Addison, together with the two deputies and the board of Bank of Ghana, consistently engaged in an illegality, and they knew it. They were consistently giving the Akufo-Addo administration money. Do you know that the latest report from Bank of Ghana shows that for the first time, okay, we are having a situation where government of Ghana now, when you look at total money in circulation, we have increased by 51%. Do you wonder why inflation is now almost 53%? Because if your total money in circulation increases by more than 51%. Inflation has reduced. Oh, from 54 to 51. 51. The point I'm making is that it's going to go down further. When you have a situation where your total money in circulation had increased by 51%, the traditional notion is that Ghanaians have a higher marginal propensity to consume than to save. So what do they use the money for? A lot of money will be chasing fewer goods. Hence the inflationary trend that we are seeing. And each time, instead of the Bank of Ghana stopping the printing, you know what they've been doing? They'll quickly increase the policy rate, thinking that it will encourage more people to save. But Adeji, have you been able to become privy to some of the responses of the Bank of Ghana as to why the borrowings have been in excess of 44 billion? In fact, the most bizarre response I've ever seen from the Bank of Ghana. You saw the statement? Yes, the last one. They admit, yes, in fact, we have done 45 billion. And now provide the Fiscal Responsibility Act as an excuse. First of all, Bank of Ghana, you don't deal with the fiscals. You deal with monetary policy. So you have a specific enactment to deal with your work, which is the Bank of Ghana Act, Act 612, as amended by Act 918. You understand, in 2016. Governor Addison is aware. And you know, the strange thing is that this is a governor who has put his deputy governor, previous deputy governor, in the court being prosecuted. Meanwhile, he has supervised consistent breach of the Bank of Ghana Act. And he provides a justification that is the Fiscal Responsibility Act. The Fiscal Responsibility Act deals with the finance minister and not Bank of Ghana. In any case, Parliament of Ghana relaxed the Fiscal Responsibility Act. It did not relax the Bank of Ghana Act. So how does it provide you justification for the continuous breach? The level of impunity of Akufo-Addo's appointees is mind-boggling. But you see, what is it that we are here doing? That we want $3 billion from the IMF and the World Bank. And
now we're told that they said come to Parliament and get approval and all that. It's just justified. Did we do that the last time, back in 2015?
First of all, IMF deals are loans. It's not free money.
Well, that's true.
IMF doesn't give free monies. Whatever what we are calling an IMF bailout or whatever.
But it's at a concession.
Yes. But look at section 56 of the Public Financial Management Act. It says approval of Parliament of terms and conditions of government borrowings.
Section what? 56?
Of the Public Financial Management Act. You have it?
Yes, I have it.
Good. 56.
The terms and conditions.
It said the terms and conditions of all government borrowings shall be laid before Parliament and shall not come into operation unless the terms and conditions are approved by resolution of Parliament in accordance with Article 181
of the Constitution.
First of all, bonds, whatever it is, are all borrowings. Fact. If they are all borrowings, the representatives of the people need to know the terms and conditions.
Because in Article 181, 1, it says Parliament may by resolution supported by the votes of a majority of all the members of Parliament authorize the government to enter into an agreement for the granting of a loan out of any public fund or public account. So my question then to you is, this is a package we have. A package we have, of course, that is going to give us $3 billion. Do we need to send it to Parliament?
Yes. What are the terms? The representatives of the people need to know. Even before then, the debt that you have restructured, you have varied the terms. Because in debt restructuring, you principally do two things. The interest, the principal, and the tenor. So if you restructure any one of these, you have varied the original loan agreement or debt instrument. So it is only fair that you let the representatives of the people know. What is it that Ken Ofori-Atta is hiding? Because our courts have consistently stated that the reason for parliamentary approval and what have you is to ensure probity and accountability. It's to ensure transparency. What is it that our finance minister is afraid of relative to transparency? Please let the people know.
What do we run risks of if, let's say,
because you see,
this whole package to the IMF is not sent to Parliament for approval?
You see, when you commit to some of these engagements, it comes with fiscal what shall I say?
Responsibilities
and liabilities. Now, if tomorrow something happens, the ultimate thing will be you and I. And let me give you a classic example. If you recall, when our talking vice president, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, created the impression of a Sino-Hydro deal and called it butter. We said, look, this is not butter. What we are seeing is actually a loan. Bring the terms to Parliament. Let's debate the terms in Parliament. He said, no, it's butter. And even insulted NDC MPs that they can't read. Do you know that as we speak, by June, the Sino-Hydro deal comes to an end? We have not established a bauxite factory. Neither have we processed our bauxite into anything meaningful. We have not created an escrow account for the purposes of getting receivables to pay off the Sino-Hydro. So it has now become part of our public debt. Who now bears the responsibility?
So we have to pay with cash.
We have to pay with cash.
Of having the alumina and then selling onto the commodities market and paying.
Creating the escrow, the receivables, and using that to service the debt, we do not have it.
That is worrisome.
So, you see the wisdom in allowing the representatives of our people to have a look at it. So, it's instructive that the things that we are calling for are the things that happen in democracies. Our friends who, in the past, created the impression that they were the apostles of the rule of law, have turned out to be very opaque in their transaction, particularly financial. And I'm not surprised that my brother here talks about burden sharing. Just 1 minute. You talk about burden sharing in this economy. Look, all the allocation, even to government, what shall I say, office of government machinery, had increased over the period.
Oh, but you know, they've cut down on workshops, fuel coupons, and printing of diaries and those. You cannot say that, look, those are not ways by policy to reduce expenditure. Please quickly,
do you know what? When you create the impression that you are no longer going to print diaries, but you employ additional hand at the office of the president, you are going to pay that person. So, you know, like we always say, it is the usual Agenda 1, Agenda 2 governance. They create the impression that they are reducing and then they are increasing the other end. We'll have the opportunity where we will interrogate the numbers so that Ghanaians will begin to have an appreciation that these people have been extremely wasteful. With all the money that they have gotten, they've been wasteful. There's no incidence of burden sharing. They claim that they have actually saved money through government intervention. It's neither here nor there. Let them show evidence what they have used, they saved money for. Then we can believe them. But even more importantly, 30 seconds. Do you know that as we speak, the Akufo-Addo administration is asking the IMF to give them that $3 billion now.
But we need it now. We need it now.
When H. John Dramani Mahama went to the IMF, of the $900 million, only 300 came under him. Akufo-Addo became the beneficiary of over $600 million.
Because JM lost the election.
No, it's not because it was
a government.
There's a tenor. Governance is continuing. But I'm just giving you an impression. Why do you think Akufo-Addo want the money now?
But critically, what is the consensus within the corridors of government? The finance minister, does he intend to heed to the call if a motion is filed to take this whole compact or agreement to Parliament for public scrutiny?
You know, Roland, our government hasn't got a problem with always going to the people's representative. We have always submitted ourselves to Parliament whenever Parliament has called us. And so should the minority succeed in pulling through a motion which is not booked over by the majority, we would definitely make an appearance in Parliament. We have nothing to hide. We have been very transparent as a government to the good people of this country. We have submitted successfully our enhanced program to the IMF. We have successfully reached a staff level agreement. We have successfully concluded our domestic debt exchange program. And inshallah, I'm in no doubt in my mind that the IMF would approve our $3 billion for this country. And so it's neither here nor there when my brother makes the arguments that we have been opaque. Our government has been extremely transparent. And you know, mornings like these where we are all in an emotional state, I don't want to take the time to do the politicking of the usual comparisons, but really to think forward as a country. The President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and his government and his leadership and the government that I'm part of would deliver this country on the promises that we have made and would ensure that the economy, which we have always stated would bounce back. The inflation is going to go down significantly more. Our fuel prices are going down. You have seen that. Give government a few more months and weeks, or weeks and months. Sure, by June of 2023, we should see some very, very exciting figures at both sides. That would even make the minority happy. that the government of President Nana Danko Akufo-Addo is the best government.
You know Bright Simmons. He makes a public statement which says that the debt apparently only covers less than 40% of the restructured program, 40% of public domestic debt, and on the contrary, instead of all that's being said about 80 to 85 participation rate, 64% was actually treated. It is the lowest participation rate in modern history.
Absolutely. You see, I disagree with him. I've had conversations. I've had conversations with even Dr. Idwanani entry on the percentage that we have reached, and it's a sizable, good enough percentage to allow the
percentage
IMF,
of what? Paul Grave.
To allow the IMF to allow the IMF.
Paul Grave, percentage of what? Tell your viewers.
To give us the $3 billion US dollars. I think the focus of government is really that the IMF board approves government's request of $3 billion US dollars.
When are we sending it to the board? If we already have 83–85%.
Oh, I think within the shortest possible time. You know, the board is sitting in March to approve all monies all requests that are coming from around the world. So I think that very soon. I mean, give government a few more days and weeks. You know, the president was in the Munich security conference in Germany just over the weekend, met with the IMF board. I'm certain that I mean, in the next week or two, we should send everything that we have been able to work on in this country to the IMF. And you know, the team is almost always around. They have a representative in Ghana who has been following all the conversations that has been going on.
But if individuals like Bright Simmons, who usually would have extensive conversations with key individuals within the Bretton Woods institutions, are raising some of these concerns, does it then resonate with what the concerns are locally with those who tend to observe the economy and what Ken Oforiatta has been saying?
You see, there had been a lot of publications relative to the level of transparency, relative to when H. John Dramani Mahama went to the IMF. Civil society groups have actually recommended what happened in that administration. It's instructive to also note that the likes of Bright Simmons are dealing with figures, numbers. The thing is that you cannot manipulate numbers. They provide a certain exactitude. You set off right from the beginning that you want to restructure 135 billion Ghana cedis of your debt. So when you now come and say the total volume of bonds or restructurable debt that you have restructured is 80 billion, how is 80 over 137, 85%? What kind of mathematics is this? Voodoo mathematics.
Is the way he's calculating it.
No, because you knew right from the beginning that the restructurable debt was 135. So even this, you are not even being honest with the people. And that is why it's important, very instructive, that Parliament get the opportunity to scrutinize. You've asked, how is this IMF conversation done? You know, usually after the staff level agreement and it's approved, the agreement is now forwarded to the board members of the fund. And you know, these board members, they have their own staffs who would also interrogate what has been agreed at the staff level. Remember that in terms of speed, we are racing against time to conclude this IMF deal. In fact, but for the intervention of the US government, we're never going to get this particular IMF deal.
Who told you that?
No, because that's the record. Because you know what? We had a year earlier to have signed on to the IMF deal. First quarter of 2021. But arrogance, pomposity, we are a proud people. We will not go to the IMF. You recall the things they said. In fact, one deputy minister even remarked that will not allow IMF small boys to come and dictate to us. So it is that level of arrogance that has made the position. And I've always likened it to two situations. If you go for regular medical checkup, the possibility that you always be healthy is great. But the day you go to hospital in an ambulance, that is where the problem is going to be. This government is with the IMF in an ambulance. And that is what has created a problem. But even more importantly, we are saying that we have restructured and that we are doing burden sharing. Let me just share with you 2021 Government of Ghana expenditure, Office of the President. Just so we'll conclude on this. Look, official celebration, 65th Independence Anniversary celebration in Cape Coast. We spent 10 million Ghana cedis. Office of Government of running costs, official vehicles, tires and batteries. We spent 50 million Ghana cedis. Payment for telecommunication and internet services. Catch how much? 20 million.
We have to make
data. Are we making calls to Jupiter? Or internet connectivity to Jupiter?
I've seen those expenditures.
Now he said there's no workshop. That's what he said. Look at 2022. Conference.
2023.
2022. Conferences, workshop, release of funds for cabinet retreat, 4.8 million Ghana cedis. Payment for supply of fuel and lubricant to GWEL, 20 million Ghana cedis. So if you look at the breakdown, I have the whole item here, item by item. But so when you say you are burden sharing, what burden sharing? You are consuming. But you know, curiously, in 2021, if you were thinking that 2022 is well, the previous year, government spent 148 million Ghana cedis on what they claim operational enhancement costs. What is the meaning? And those were the time the
so
president
you're worried
was doing
that
the
government is trumpeting that it will cut costs, but it's not.
Nothing.
It's not showing.
These are the numbers. These are the numbers. You are not. In fact, they claim that we should tighten our belt, but they don't even have a belt hole. How do you lead with this kind of example?
What are your expectations? What were your expectations?
Look, government must demonstrate that in terms of austerity, they will go together with the people of this country. Let people genuinely see efforts on your part to reduce the numbers. And by numbers, your expenditure costs. You are not doing that.
Government has reduced expenditure costs.
You are not.
Government has reduced expenditure.
These are the numbers.
Significantly. Compare
and you know why?
Numbers to 2017.
Do you know why?
And even
do you know why?
You have
used. He says that government has reduced costs, and you are saying government. You don't believe.
I'm giving you the numbers.
No, I have those myself.
The data as well.
You seem to be in distrust of government. He says that government is doing it.
We've reduced expenditure extremely.
But there are some ministers who are in Accra still using V8s and things. You know that?
Government has
no, that is why I'm saying that it is different. You know how Alan Chamantin describes it? He said talk only.
He said no action, talk only. NATO.
That is what the Akufo-Addo administration is. And this word, it is one of the key cabinet ministers that describe his own colleagues as talk only. NATO. That is what this government.
Our government is not talk only.
How?
That's reducing the.
So you mean that Alan didn't know what you was talking about?
Well, we're taking a break. There's a key consideration that we also need to make when we come back from the break, and it is apparently a directive from the national headquarters of the opposition NDC to their side of the house, the minority side of the house, that newly nominated ministers by the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, should not be approved. And this time is not only that, they demand the non-participation of their side of the house and resistance in the approval of those ministers. Why are they putting this out? We're taking a break. When we come back, stay with us. We'll take a look at that.